Right, let's jump into another deep dive. Today we're going to get loud, really loud, and explore the world of Rage Against the Machine.
Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah, the band that somehow turned revolutionary politics into, well, mosh pit anthem.
Gosh, pit anthems.
We've got a bunch of sources to dig into today.
Oh, yeah.
We've got some excerpts from a Rolling Stone article about protest songs
Okay.
and a big chunk of RTM's Wikipedia page. But, the big question, the one we really want to get at today is, what made this band more than just headbangers?
Right.
More than just, a musical phenomenon?
Yeah.
What made them, a cultural force?
It's a great question. Yeah, it's really interesting to think about how they got so big, how they hit the mainstream,
Yeah.
but never backed down from their message.
Yeah, never compromised their radical message at all.
Not one bit.
I mean, think about Killing in the Name, their first single.
Oh, yeah,
It's just pure sonic fury.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just like a gut reaction to the LA riots and police brutality.
Like visceral.
Visceral, yeah, the Rolling Stone article, it even mentions how, record executives were just totally baffled when they first heard it.
I bet.
One of them, I think, just kind of squeaked out, "So is that the direction you're heading in?" They had no idea what to do with it.
What's interesting is it wasn't just a hit. I mean, it became an anthem.
Oh, totally.
Released right after the riots.
Yeah.
It captured that raw anger.
Oh, yeah.
Frustration of that moment.
You're right.
It spoke to those, the issues of racism and police brutality
Absolutely.
that were behind it all.
Yeah.
And De La Rocha's lyrics.
Oh, so powerful.
Especially lines like, "Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses." I mean, that cut through everything.
Undeniable.
So powerful.
And the music itself, it's it amplifies that anger. It builds and builds, and then it explodes into that iconic, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me."
It's still electrifying.
Oh, absolutely. Decades later, still
Yeah.
electrifying.
Yeah.
But they weren't just Rage, right? They weren't afraid to play around with different sounds.
No, not at all.
Even within one song. That same Rolling Stone article talks about Know Your Enemy,
Okay.
which goes from slap bass funk
Yeah.
to these intense, almost operatic shrieks from Maynard James Keenan.
That's right. Yeah.
Totally unexpected.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's awesome.
And that's key to their sound, right?
Yeah.
That unexpectedness.
Yeah.
They were masters at blending genres.
Yeah.
Rap, metal, punk,
Yeah.
even funk
Yeah.
seamlessly.
So seamlessly.
And that created a sound that was both familiar and completely unique.
You're right.
You get drawn in by the groove,
Uh-huh.
but then, bam, hit with a message you can't ignore.
You can't ignore it. And they weren't just making noise in some basement, right?
Right.
They were on the charts.
Yeah.
Their Wikipedia page says they hit #1 on the Billboard 200
With albums like,
with Evil Empire and the Battle of Los Angeles.
wow.
That's mainstream success.
That's huge. And it made their political stance even more powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they weren't, preaching to the choir. They were topping the charts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, calling out injustice.
Exactly.
That made them a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely. And it's they put their money where their mouth was.
Literally.
Right. And if they weren't afraid to make a statement, even on national television.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
Think about that Saturday Night Live performance.
Oh, infamous.
Oh, yeah. They tried to hang those upside-down American flags to protest Steve Forbes.
Right, the guest host.
Yeah, the guest host, who was a Republican presidential candidate at the time.
A bold move.
So bold.
Yeah.
And it caused a lot of controversy, to say the least.
Well, it's a perfect example of how they use their platform to protest.
Absolutely.
Even if it meant, facing a backlash. It wasn't just about the music. It was
Right.
about using their influence
Yeah.
to challenge authority and
Yeah.
get people talking about, censorship,
Yeah.
freedom of expression.
And they didn't stop there.
Oh, no.
Remember when Tim Comerford climbed that MTV Video Music Awards set
How could I forget?
after Limp Bizkit beat them for Best Rock Video?
In 2000, that was.
Oh, yeah, 2000.
Yeah. That was, well, it was entertaining.
Oh, definitely entertaining.
But it also says a lot about their dynamic.
What do you mean?
Well, they were known for their passionate energy.
Yeah.
You could even say combustible.
Right, right.
And that, that incident, coupled with other creative differences, led to their first breakup.
That's right, later that year,
Yeah.
which, as we know, devastated fans.
I remember.
Graders even voted it the shittiest thing of 2000.
Wow.
Yeah. But even though they were apart, they each kept going with their own creative, and political passions.
Absolutely.
We saw Audioslave emerge
With Chris Cornell.
with Chris Cornell, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Morello started his solo project, The Night Watchman.
Uh-huh.
And Zach De La Rocha collaborated with a bunch of different artists.
It's interesting to compare those projects to Rage.
Yeah.
Audioslave, they had a more commercial sound,
Right.
which isn't surprising with Cornell.
Yeah.
But Morello, he used The Night Watchman to express his own political views
Yeah.
through folk music,
Right.
connecting with people in a different way.
Yeah. And speaking of making a statement, remember that lyrically questionable list
Oh, yeah.
that Clear Channel put out after 9/11?
After 9/11, yeah.
RATM's music, their whole catalog, was flagged as, potentially problematic.
Right. It was a list compiled by Clear Channel,
Yeah.
sent to radio stations to
Yeah.
avoid playing songs that were, deemed inappropriate.
After the attacks.
Right.
Yeah. The fact that RATM, a
Yeah.
band known for their anti-establishment views,
Yeah.
was on that list.
It speaks volumes
It really does.
about how they were perceived
Yeah.
a threat to the status quo.
Yeah.
It almost solidified their image as, the band that challenges authority,
Yeah.
even when they're not around.
It's wild how their music still resonates.
It really is.
Even after all the breakups and reunions,
Yeah.
there's something about their message, their sound, that just connects with people
Across generations.
across generations.
It's true. And it seems to become even more relevant
Yeah.
during times of, social and political upheaval.
It's like their music it's a release valve
Yeah.
for when everything feels out of control.
Exactly.
Which brings us to their reunions.
Right.
They got back together at Coachella in 2007.
Uh-huh.
And then there was that amazing fan campaign
Oh, yeah.
that got Killing in the Name to the top of the UK Christmas charts.
That was amazing. Those reunions were more than just nostalgia.
Cool.
They showed that the fire in them and their fans never went out.
Yeah.
They could still mobilize people
Yeah.
through their music and activism.
You're right. Remember that march they led during the 2008 Democratic National Convention?
In Denver.
In Denver, yeah.
Yeah.
The one with Iraq veterans against the war?
Yeah.
They marched, 6 miles to Invesco Field?
6 miles.
Demanding to be heard.
Yeah.
That's not just showing up.
That's a statement.
That's a statement.
It was a powerful demonstration of their influence, showing how they could still rally people
Yeah.
around a cause,
Yeah.
even when it meant confronting those in power.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And their sets during those reunions, just as intense.
If not more so.
It's like they were fueled by that time apart.
All that pent-up energy.
All that pent-up energy exploding on stage. And then there was the public service announcement tour.
Okay.
Their first full world tour in, 20 years?
20 years.
Ambitious,
It was.
but sadly cut short
Because of Zach De La Rocha's injury.
because of his leg injury, yeah.
Yeah, a real shame, especially given the tour's focus
Yeah.
on social justice
Yeah.
and donating the proceeds
Yeah.
to organizations.
It's a shame.
But it also speaks to, their performance style.
What do you mean?
Well, they weren't just standing there playing music.
Right.
They were giving it their all,
Yeah.
physically,
Yeah.
emotionally. And
Yeah.
for De La Rocha, with his vocals and stage presence, that takes a toll.
It does. It does. But even though the tour was cut short, they still made a statement.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those massive donations to reproductive rights groups?
Oh, in Wisconsin and Illinois?
Wisconsin and Illinois, yeah.
What?
$475,000.
Wow. Actions speak louder than words, right?
They do.
And that's always been them.
Yeah.
They used their platform to advocate
Yeah.
for causes they believed in.
Absolutely.
Not just through their music, but through real support.
It's amazing how their music still has so much power.
It really is.
All their albums landed in the top 30 of Apple Music's Rock Albums chart in 2020.
During the Black Lives Matter protests.
During the Black Lives Matter protests.
It's a testament to their message.
Yeah.
Their songs spoke to the injustices of their time.
Yeah.
And those same issues are still here today.
They are. Police brutality,
Systemic racism.
economic disparity.
It's all there in their music.
And it's just as urgent now as it was back then.
Which raises an important question.
Okay, what's that?
If RETM were forming today, what would they be raging against?
That's a good question. I mean, they've always been outspoken
About so many things.
about their support for, social justice movements,
Yeah.
from the Zapatistas in Mexico,
Zapatistas, yeah.
indigenous rebels fighting for their land rights and autonomy,
Yeah.
to Mumia Abu-Jamal,
Right.
a former Black Panther,
Yeah.
who was convicted of killing a police officer.
In a trial many believe was unfair.
Yeah, yeah. They even called for a boycott of performances in Israel.
Until the occupation of the Palestinian territories ends.
Yeah.
And that boycott, it's a great example of how they use their platform
Yeah.
to raise awareness about a really complex conflict.
Yeah.
They understood that music can be a powerful tool
Yeah,
for political change.
absolutely.
Even if it means losing fans or facing criticism.
They never shied away from taking a stance,
Never.
even when it was controversial. And just recently,
Yeah.
both Zach De La Rocha and Tom Morello spoke out in support of a ceasefire.
Oh, in the 2023 Israel-Hamas war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A conflict marked by just intense violence on both sides.
It seems like they're always pushing for positive change,
They are.
using their music as a weapon against oppression,
Yeah,
no matter where it happens.
you're right.
They recognize that silence in the face of injustice is complicity,
Yeah,
and they use their voices to amplify the voices of the marginalized.
well said. So what does all this mean for their future? Well, sadly, drummer Brad Wilk confirmed just this year that the band, they've disbanded
Again.
for the third time.
Oh.
No more tours, no more new music.
It really is the end of an era.
It is. But hey, at least they went out with a bang, right? They were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
It's about time. They more than earned their place.
Oh, I agree. Although it is a bit ironic that Tom Morello was the only one who went to the ceremony.
The others were busy.
Yeah, they had other commitments.
It's almost fitting, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Even in celebration, they're still doing things their own way.
They are. So, looking back at everything we've talked about, what do you think is their most enduring legacy?
I think it's their unwavering commitment to fusing music and activism.
Yeah.
They prove that you can be successful
Yeah.
commercially
Yeah.
and politically engaged.
Yeah.
That you can make people dance and think.
You're right. And they did it without compromising their beliefs.
Exactly.
Even when it meant like facing backlash or censorship.
They never sold out, never toned down their message.
Yeah.
And that's what made them so authentic and inspiring.
So true. Okay, so before we wrap up, let's go back to that question you asked earlier.
Okay.
If Radium were forming today, what would they be raging against?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I think they'd still be addressing the same systemic issues,
Yeah.
but through a modern lens.
Yeah.
Climate change,
Yeah.
income inequality,
Yeah.
the rise of authoritarianism, just
Yeah.
a few of the battles they might be fighting.
And imagine the music.
Oh, I know.
Those sonic explosions of anger and hope.
Yeah.
Lyrics that cut through everything.
It's almost too much to think about.
It is.
But one thing's for sure, their message would resonate
Oh, yeah.
with a new generation facing its own challenges.
Well, on that note, let's leave our listeners with one final thought-provoking question inspired by everything we've learned about Radium. What are you raging against? And how will you use your voice, your art, your actions to make a difference?
Keep those questions in mind as you listen to RAATM.
Yeah.
Who knows, maybe their revolutionary spirit will ignite a fire in you, too.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Rage Against the Machine. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep on raging.
Yeah, it really is. It seems to get even more relevant
Yeah.
when things are kind of crazy.
Like when times are tough, yeah.
Socially, politically.
You're right. It's like their music is a pressure valve
Hmm.
for those moments when you just, you feel like,
It's like an outlet?
yeah, an outlet, like everything's out of control.
Yeah.
Which brings us to their reunions.
Okay.
They got back together at Coachella in 2007,
Mm-hmm.
and then there was that epic fan campaign
Oh, yeah.
to get Killing in the Name to the top of the UK Christmas charts,
I remember that.
which is wild.
Those reunions, though,
Yeah.
they were more than just nostalgia trips.
Yeah.
They showed that the fire in REM and in their fans, it never really went out.
It didn't, you're right.
They could still mobilize people
Mm.
through their music and either activism.
You're right. Remember that march they led?
Oh, during the 2008 Democratic National Convention.
Yeah, the one in Denver
In Denver, yeah.
with Iraq veterans against the war.
Yeah, that's right.
They marched, what was it, like 6 miles to Invesco Field,
6 miles demanding to be heard.
demanding to be heard.
Yeah.
That's not just showing up.
No.
That's a statement.
That's a statement for sure.
It was a powerful demonstration.
It really was, of their influence,
Yeah.
showing how they could still rally people around a cause,
Yeah.
even when it meant confronting, those in power.
Yeah, you're right. And musically,
Oh, yeah.
their sets during those reunions were just as intense.
If not more so, yeah.
It's like they were fueled by that time apart.
All that pent-up energy.
All that pent-up energy just exploding on stage.
Exploding on stage.
And then there was the public service announcement tour, their first full world tour in, 20 years?
20 years.
Ambitious,
It was. Very.
but sadly cut short.
Because of Zach De La Rocha's injury.
Yeah, his leg injury.
Yeah, it was a real shame.
It was.
Especially because the focus of the tour was social justice and, donating proceeds to different organizations.
It's a shame.
It is. But it also kind of speaks to,
Yeah.
their performance style.
What do you mean?
Well, they weren't just, standing there playing music. They
Yeah.
were giving it everything,
Yeah.
physically, emotionally.
Yeah.
And for De La Rocha, with his vocals and stage presence,
Yeah.
that takes a toll.
It does. It does. But even with the tour cut short, they still managed to make a statement.
Oh, yeah.
Remember those huge donations they made?
Oh, to the reproductive rights groups?
Yeah, in Wisconsin and Illinois,
Wisconsin and Illinois.
$475,000.
Wow, actions speak louder than words.
They do. They really do.
And that's always been them.
Oh.
Using their platform to advocate for causes they believe in.
Absolutely.
Not just through their music, but through, actual support.
It's incredible to think that after all these years, their music still has so much power.
It really does, yeah.
I mean, their entire discography landed in the top 30 of Apple Music's rock albums chart in 2020.
During the Black Lives Matter protests.
During the Black Lives Matter protests, yeah.
It's a testament to how timeless their message is.
Yeah.
Their songs, they spoke to the injustices of their time.
Yeah,
And sadly, those same issues are still relevant today.
they are. Police brutality,
Systemic racism,
economic disparity, it's all there.
all there in their music.
And it's just as urgent now as it was back then.
Which raises an interesting question.
Okay, what's that?
If RTM were forming today, what would they be raging against?
That's a good question. I mean, they've always been outspoken
Oh, yeah.
about their support for various social justice movements,
Absolutely.
from the Zapatistas in Mexico.
The Zapatistas, yeah.
Indigenous rebels fighting for land rights and autonomy, to Mumia Abu-Jamal,
Right, a former Black Panther
who was convicted of killing a police officer.
in a trial that many believe was unfair.
Yeah, and they even called for a boycott of performances in Israel.
Until the occupation of the Palestinian territories ends.
Yeah.
And that boycott's a great example of how they use their platform
Yeah.
to raise awareness about a really complex conflict.
Right.
They understood that music can be a powerful tool for political change,
Absolutely.
even if it means alienating some fans or facing criticism.
They never shied away from taking a stance, even when it was controversial.
Never.
And just recently, both Zach De La Rocha and Tom Morello voiced their support for a ceasefire.
Oh, in the 2023 Israel-Hamas war.
Yeah, a conflict marked by just intense violence and suffering.
On both sides, it seems like they're always pushing for positive change,
They are. They really are.
using their music as a weapon
Yeah.
against oppression,
Yeah.
no matter where it occurs.
You're right.
They recognize that silence in the face of injustice is complicity,
Yeah.
and they use their voices to amplify the voices of the marginalized and oppressed.
Well said. So what does all of this mean for their future? Well, sadly, drummer Brad Wilk confirmed just this year that the band has, they've disbanded
Again?
for the third time.
Wow.
No more tours, no more new music. It truly is the end of an era.
It is a sad day for music and for activism,
It is.
but their impact will continue to be felt for years to come.
Absolutely.
They've left behind an incredible body of work that continues to inspire and challenge listeners.
Absolutely. But even though they're done, their music will always be there to,
To ignite our own rebellions.
to ignite our own rebellions. Yeah. Yeah, it really is the end of an era. But hey, at least they went out with a bang, right? They were finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame this year.
It's about time. They definitely earned their place.
They did. They more than earned it. Although it is kind of ironic that Tom Morello was the only one who showed up for the ceremony.
The others couldn't make it.
Yeah, they had other commitments. You know how it goes.
Well, it's almost fitting, isn't it? Even in celebration.
Yeah.
They're still defying expectations, doing things their own way.
So true. So, looking back on everything we've talked about, what do you think is RATM's most enduring legacy?
That's a tough one. I think it's their unwavering commitment
Yeah.
to fusing music and activism.
Huh.
They proved that you can be commercially successful and
Mhm.
politically engaged.
Yep.
You can make people dance and make them think
You're absolutely right. And they did it all without,
without compromising their beliefs.
yeah, even when it meant facing backlash or censorship.
Exactly. They never sold out, never toned down their message.
Never.
And that's what made them so authentic
Yeah.
and so inspiring.
Okay, so before we wrap up, let's go back to that question you asked earlier. If RADM were forming today, what would they be raging against?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
It is.
I think they'd still be addressing those same systemic issues,
Yeah.
but, through a contemporary lens.
Right. Like what?
Climate change, income inequality, the rise of authoritarianism.
Yeah.
Just a few of the battles they might be waging.
And imagine the music they'd create.
Oh, man.
Those sonic explosions of anger and hope, lyrics that just cut through everything.
Like almost too much to contemplate.
It is.
But one thing's for sure, their message would resonate
Oh, yeah.
with a new generation facing its own unique set of challenges.
Well, on that note, let's leave our listeners with one final thought-provoking question, inspired by everything we've learned about RADM today.
Mm.
What are you raging against?
Hmm?
And how are you going to use your voice, your art, your actions to make a difference?
Yeah, think about that as you listen to RADM. Who knows, maybe their revolutionary spirit will spark something in you too.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into Rage Against the Machine. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and keep on raging.